That game was so good, even John Smoltz couldn't hate it.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy World Series, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I'm an Emmy-nominated television producer who has been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now, and this is the beginning of my fifth World Series as a host here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or on Instagram. I am your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat more than 50 infections. Get yours at jasemedical.com. That's JASC medical.com. And please follow us on all your podcasting platforms or right here on YouTube. Subscribe to us. You can see my expressions. You'll see my face. You see some of the subtleties. And I've been known as a very, very subtle podcaster. In fact, one person says, Jay Cottrell says, this dude is a no-talent hack. But hey, I disagree. And if you disagree with him, then what you can do, you can let people know by saying you are an everyday Sully when you listen to us and you post any questions on all of the social media. Before we get to game one of the World Series, which was pretty much everything you could hope for, unless you're a Diamondback fan. Sorry, Millard. Then let's talk about the trivia question about a darker day in Texas Rangers history. That was the famous David Freese game. And in that game 6, where the Rangers were one strike away and David Freese hit that game-tying triple to send the game into extra innings and later hit the walk-off home run. But the Rangers were also behind in the 10th inning, and someone else had to come through, and then a lesser celebrated hit got a game-tying hit with 2 outs in the 9th inning. Who was that? A couple of you got it right. Amy Green said it, got it correct. I'm going to call her out. She said AJG1423. She's one of our everyday Sully listeners. Says Big Puma Lance Berkman. That's right, Lance Berkman off of reliever Scott Feldman. It was Josh Hamilton who hit the home run in the top of the 10th, but they had already burned through their relievers. So it was veteran Darren Oliver who first got a shot to clinch the World Series. And when he got into trouble, in came Scott Feldman. 2 strikes to Lance Berkman, and he had basically hit one between second base and center field, scored the tying run, and then it was the Freese home run in the bottom of the 10th. Well, that was bottom of the 11th. Sorry. So that was a dark day for Texas Rangers fans. Today was pretty much anything you could hope for. Let's just go over a couple of things that happened in the game. First of all, some head scratching things and some other moments that were really great in the game. From the beginning, it looked like, oh boy, the Rangers were just going to be all over. The Rangers were going to be all over the D-backs. And when they scored 2 runs in the top of the first off of Gallen, it looked like, oh boy. And, Eovaldi looked really good those first couple innings. Carter, who has been a revelation up to this point, hit the 2-run double, and Garcia, who would show up later, got a base hit. Next thing you know, it's 2-0. But then Corbin Carroll, who was a big reason why the Diamondbacks won the final games in Philadelphia, hit that deep triple, and it scored a pair of runs to tie the game in the 3rd. And then there was the play at the plate where the throw went a little wide, and Corbin Carroll scored on the fielder's choice by Ketel Marte. If it was anybody slower than Corbin Carroll, which is most people, I think Barry Allen is faster than Corbin Carroll, but most people are slower than Corbin Carroll. There would have been out at the plate, but Carroll scored and they took the lead, and then the bases loaded walk to Garver tied the game, and Tommy Pham hit his first World Series home run. The Diamondbacks took that 4-3 lead. Marte, who has just been just a colossus in the postseason, he doubled. It was a 5-3 Arizona game, and when the Rangers couldn't score in the bottom of the eighth, and the big strikeout to Garver, the fly ball by Lowe, was it Lowe or Lowe? I can't remember. Neither do you. I really felt like, okay, well, Ginkel worked out of a lot of trouble, but he got out of that trouble, and they're handing the ball over to Sewald. Now, I'll just kind of say a couple things before obviously, you mainly remember how these games end. But once again, I'm an absolute broken record on this. And I understand taking out Eovaldi when you did, because he got off to a great start, but they started smacking him around. And his final line wasn't very good. He did strike out 8. He only let up 1 walk. But he couldn't get through the 5th inning. And, Dunning came in with 2 runners on, got out of that 5th inning. And Thompson and Mantiply and Ginkel all threw shutout innings. But I started wondering, and the moment I really wondered is when Gray of the Rangers was giving it a little bit of length. And he had 1 out and nobody on in the 9th inning, and Bochy took him out. And I'm really was becoming perplexed by that. And I remember thinking to myself, during that point of the game, and I've always thought this, even during the regular season, when you have a parade of relievers and no reliever is really getting trounced, what happens if it gets to extra innings? What happens if you have the team get to extra innings and you've burnt through all your relievers in the early innings, and you're forced to bring in people who you wouldn't normally bring in a tight situation to suddenly throw multiple innings because you couldn't stretch anyone during the game? That occurred to me during the game, and really occurred to me when they lifted Gray, who was pitching well and had no runners on base, 1 out in the 9th inning. And they pulled him to bring in Will Smith, not that Will Smith and not the other Will Smith, but the pitcher Will Smith. And it didn't make a lick of sense to me when it happened. I remember shaking my head. And by the way, we'll get into the scoring and everything the second segment. Guys with thoughts about the heroism there. But I also was thinking, like, look at Will Smith threw, how many pitches he threw? 7. He threw 7 pitches. Mantiply threw 15 pitches. Castro was the final one, but like you look at over, like Dunning threw 14 pitches. Bradford threw 11. Like you see, they're like, okay, each threw 1 inning. There's really no way you could have stretched Mantiply into a 2nd inning. Look, it's hard for me to pass judgment on how Bochy handled the bullpen when you considered that the Diamondbacks didn't score a run after the 5th inning. Essentially, they didn't score a run off of the bullpen. And save for the 2 big home runs, the Diamondbacks held the Rangers scoreless. And Nelson pitched well, and Ginkel worked out of jams. But I couldn't help but wonder if this game went deep, if this game went it went 11. What if it went 12? What if it went 13? Remember how the World Series began in 2015 between the Mets and the Royals? It was a 14-15 inning game. What if it was one of those games? How many innings are you going to stretch Aroldis Chapman out? How many innings are you going to, you're going to throw starting pitchers out of the rotation? It's an element of the game that drives me crazy. And fortunately for the Rangers, it didn't come back to bite them. I would like to see where these games go deep, because I would like to see what happens. But alas, super drama came up in the final innings that hearkened to some of the ghosts of the Arizona Diamondbacks past. And with that, we got to break down who had the more dramatic moment. Who had the bigger moment for postseason legends? Recently I had to go to the doctor for some infections that I had inside inside my body. And I happened to be able to get the right uh, prescriptions and the right medication for my infection and the right antibiotic that I needed. And I'm feeling a lot better. But I need to have access to those antibiotics. I need to have access to that medicine. And what if I'm not at home? And what if I'm at a place where getting that medication and the medication that I need is going to be harder? Well, guess what? That's when you need the Jace case. It's a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that can treat the most common and deadly bacterial infection. And you can also customize your case to add additional life-saving medication for your unique needs. Jace Medical now offers customability for your Jace case with dozens of add-on medications. Choose the medication for you and for your family's unique need. Now, Jace is continuing to work on expanding their medication offerings. In the recent efforts, they've added Aphomycin for those of you with worms as an option in the Jace case. And you can buy a gift card for your family or loved ones so they can get a Jace case of their own. Go to jacemedical.com or enter promo code Locked On at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code Locked On at jasemedical.com. All right. So let's get to the drama, because there were 2 dramatic moments in the game and sort of for the lack of a better word, a debate in my head of which one is the bigger moment. Who was the big hero of this game? Now, the Tavares gets the walk. In fact, he got a couple of key walks, but the number 9 hitter got the walk, gets on base. Semien, who did not have a very good game, he went 1 for 6 with a pair of strikeouts. He whiffed. Okay, now there's 1 out, runner on. Corey Seager comes up, and Corey Seager is a big postseason hero. He was the League Championship Series hero and World Series hero for the Dodgers in the COVID year. And appropriately enough, those games were not played at Dodger Stadium or in Atlanta or in Tampa because that was the COVID year. All of the games were played in the ballpark in Arlington, whose the name of that ballpark right now escapes me. Is it Globe Life? I think so. It's in Arlington. Either way, his big postseason moments took place in Arlington. Now he's a member of the Rangers to bring in the postseason heroics. And on the first pitch, he hits a no doubt about it home run that ties the game off of Sewald. And at that moment, it's got to be running through your head, oh boy, did the Diamondbacks blow it again? And by blowing it again, I have to just point out a wonderful tweet from Palmer Black, who's at Palmer Black PHX, which is a Phoenix sports feed. And Palmer Black wrote, the Diamondbacks have played in 4 World Series road games in their franchise history, and they have allowed a game-tying 2-run home run in the bottom of the 9th 3 times. Think of that. On the road at Yankee Stadium in Game 4, they let up a 2-run home run to Tino Martinez to tie that game. They let up a 2-run home run to Scott Brosius the very next game. And this one, they let up the game-tying home run, 2-run home run to Corey Seager. And the entire game just flipped at that moment. And do you know what also flipped? My preparation for the podcast you're listening to right now. I'm going to open up the curtain a little bit. When I'm watching a game, in a big game like that, I start thinking about the angles that I want to have, some of the stuff I want to talk about. And I was already in my head to prepare for a Diamondbacks victory, how they dusted themselves off after a rough start and showed that they have the guts and the determination, especially when Eovaldi looks so good at the top, and that Ketel Marte is putting on a clinic of how to be a postseason hero. Suddenly, Corey Seager homered, record scratch, and I realized a pretty good first game was turning into a real classic. Then Adolis Garcia came up, and of course, Garcia had a wonderful game leading up to that, leading up to the finale. Lest we forget, Garcia got 3 hits, walked, and was hit by a pitch. That's right. He got on base 5 times in his first ever World Series game. And he came up. Now, there was the big double play in the 10th inning, which people will forget because it was obscure. And Garcia came up against Castro and hit that fly ball down the right field line. And lo and behold, it cleared the wall for yet another home run in his postseason life. And look at, I feel badly for Miguel Castro, savvy veteran who's been in the league for about a decade, bounced around a lot, played in the postseason with the Yankees last year, appeared in a handful of games this year, and he was the one up, and he let up the walk-off home run. And this is going to be the Garcia game because he had a great game, got on base 5 times, blah, 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 blah. I'm gonna tell you this. Seager's home run was the more dramatic. It's many times the home run that sets up the walk-off. A lot of times it's the moment that ties the game up where there's more on the line. The David Freese triple with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th in many ways was more dramatic than his walk-off homer, because the walk-off homer was a leadoff homer. It was not against their best reliever. It was off, and not as much pressure was on at that moment. The pressure that Freese had, in that game with 2 strikes in the bottom of the 9th was, we're about to be eliminated. That's why a bunch of people, including Steve Silva, wrote very compelling pieces that the home run by Bernie Carbo in the classic 1975 World Series was more dramatic than the Carlton Fisk home run. We remember the Fisk because it was the walk-off home run. But when Bernie Carbo hit the 3-run home run in the bottom of the 8th, the Red Sox were dead. They were losing 6-3 to the Big Red Machine with 2 outs, 2 strikes, and 2 on, and Bernie Carbo looking incredibly overmatched. And then he wound up hitting the 3-run home run that tied the game and suddenly woke up the Red Sox. Nothing in the 2016 World Series was as dramatic as the Rajai Davis home run for a team that lost. But it woke up Cleveland at that point. And in Diamondbacks history, everybody remembers the Luis Gonzalez blue pit over Jeter. But the real moment was Tony Womack. Remember, at that point, Mariano Rivera was invincible. Absolutely invincible. And was showing the world why you needed a closer. The difference between the Diamondbacks and the Yankees. Even the Diamondbacks outplayed the Yankees in every way, shape, or form. The Yankees went to Game 7 to the bottom of the 9th with a lead with Rivera on the mound about to clinch it. And Rivera was the difference because Rivera was unstoppable and Byung-Hyun Kim blew 2 of the games. And when Womack got that hit into right field that sent Midre Cummings home to tie the game, it was physically impossible to imagine a sequence where Mariano Rivera would blow a lead. And when Womack got that hit to tie the game, it's put the whole season in a tizzy. And whether or not they would have scored at that inning or further along, it wasn't as unbelievable. It was just mind-numbing. And sadly, Womack's heroism has faded away because the clip of Luis Gonzalez is the one we always see. The clip of Carlton Fisk is the one we always see. We always see David Freese's home run. We don't see his triple as often as anymore. And we'll remember the Garcia walk-off home run because it won the game. Garcia's having this superhuman postseason. But it was Corey Seager's home run that set everything up. Without that heroism, say that 3 times fast, without that heroism, is that correct? I think it is. Let's just go with it. Then there is no heroism in the 9th inning. So I think Seager's home run was the moment of the game. But you know what? Garcia is very early on showing that he is trying to win the LCS and World Series MVP this year. You kind of like Jeremy Pena did last year, and kind of like, wait, who did it for the Dodgers? Oh, yeah, Corey Seager. All right, this month is going to be a month where I am going to be having lots of food out and making dinner a lot, whether it's watching World Series games that are probably going into November, seeing some of the big football games, or, of course, Thanksgiving. And how does a free Thanksgiving sound? Well, guess what? This year, Ibotta is here to give you cash back and help make you make your Thanksgiving dinner complete. Because who wants turkey without a little gravy? Look at starting November 1st, when the World Series is probably still going on, for the 4th year in a row, Ibotta is giving 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast. Just add the offers in the app to redeem everything you need to make your Thanksgiving feast complete. All you have to do is shop at your favorite retailers and upload your receipt. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much, but with Ibotta, you can get real cash back that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or even gift cards. And you can earn cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers too when you start with Ibotta, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and even more. Download the Ibotta app now and use code MLB to get 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving dinner starting November 1st. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code MLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and then use promo code MLB. That's Ibotta. Let's get some cash. Sorry for the bumper issue there. This is a punch to the face to the Diamondbacks, because they had everything set up for a game 1 win, winning a game where you had everything was positive here. You didn't get the best start from Gallen. You were facing Eovaldi, and still they were on the verge of winning the game. And in fact, they were a pitch away from winning it. If Corey Seager had to do a double play, boom, D-backs are up. Corey Seager doesn't hit that home run, boom, they win a game on the road. Now they are in a bad place. Now look at, they could still win tomorrow, and the key is to win a game on the road so you can go back home with home field advantage. But this is a wobbly moment for the Diamondbacks. They have to get Kelly to pitch very well. And look at, Scherzer is going to pitch in game 3. Scherzer is wobbly. Scherzer's been hurt. Scherzer hasn't looked very good since coming back. And that's why it's so critical for Arizona to take one of these 2 games. Because if you're up, if it's 1-1 and you're facing Scherzer, and this is not Max Scherzer the Great, but this is wobbly Max Scherzer, all of a sudden the Diamondbacks are in the position to be up 2-1. They still are in that position, provided they show up tomorrow. But wow, this is not going to be the easiest road. And also, wow, they've already burned through a lot of their pitches. They're going to have to use in back-to-back game. Montgomery is a good pitcher. So is Kelly. Both of these pitchers have pitched well and have pitched well in big moments. But you can't let a game like this slip away. And there's kind of a weird historical precedent with this. I mean, I brought up the fact that once again, this is a road World Series game for the Diamondbacks where they let up a game-tying home run in the 9th inning. But they've never won on the road. There has never been a Diamondbacks Look, I mentioned this the other day. There's never been a Diamondbacks World Series save. There's also never been a Diamondbacks win on the road. And you know what? They're able to get away with that in 2001 because they won all the home games and they had the home field advantage. Well, they don't have the home field advantage now. They want to win. They have to win at least one game in Texas. And so, look at it's, you got beat by Seager and you got beat by Garcia, two of the big guns. But Carroll got a big hit when they needed it. Marte, Carroll and Marte each drove in 2 runs. 4 of the 5 runs were driven in by Carroll and Marte, and Carroll scored the other one. Pham hit a big home run, so that was critical. They need Moreno. They need Walker, and Walker has been a dud. Remember, going into the final few games between Philadelphia and Arizona, I said Carroll needs to pick it up. Well, guess what? Walker needs to pick it up as well. They have a big hole in the middle of that lineup, which is Walker, and he's got to start swinging the bat. Otherwise, this could be over real fast. Thomas played well. Longoria got a big hit and scored a run. So, I mean, Gallen gave him 5 innings. He probably could have given him 6. I'm always for stretching someone out for 1 extra inning. But, game 1 was a classic, but a gut punch to the Arizona Diamondbacks. In order to make this a series, the road team's got to win something. Because if Texas is up 2-0, suddenly starting Scherzer in game 3 is not a huge risk. So Diamondbacks, if you want to make this a World Series, now's the time. You got to win tomorrow. Otherwise, it might be too big of a road for them to climb up. Kind of like in Philadelphia when they lost that first game and they got blown out in game 2 and they had no chance. Oh, wait a minute. We all have gone broke underestimating the Diamondbacks, but this one was rough. And by the way, let's go on to our trivia question. Along with the Diamondbacks, what other franchises have never had a road World Series game that they've won? The Diamondbacks are one of them. There are 1, 2, 3 others. I think that's right. Well, tell me, if you come up with one I didn't think of, then I say there are 4 altogether. If you come up with a 5th, then you get bonus points. So that's your trivia question. Send it to Locked.MLB Pods on Twitter or on Instagram. You can send it to my personal Twitter account or whatever Twitter is called now at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, or write them right down here in the YouTube comments. Not a bad opening act, as Vince Scully said back in 1988. Not a bad opening act here in 2023. Those of you who poo-pooed this World Series say it wouldn't be of any interest, 1 game in, and you're completely wrong. This has been Locked On MLB after Game 1 of the 2023 World Series. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.